Hello and good morning, good night, good afternoon, good middle of the night, wherever you are. Hello and welcome. If you're new here, hey, what's up? My name is Liz, and this is Creating Crime Time, where I create a work of art and talk about a true crime case at the same time. So if you're interested, hit the subscribe button, turn your bell notifications on to all, and let's get into today's very fucked up case. Also, disclaimer, if you don't like swears, yeah, so let's get into it. First things first. Coffee. Oh, and by the way, if I'm looking like, I have my easel right in front of me, so I can draw and talk about the stuff at the same time. Makes it a lot easier. That way, when obviously recording my case, I am still creating art. Yeah, if you were wondering. Just want to put that disclaimer out there. Because I got a message on Instagram, why do you keep looking down? Well, I'm sorry, how am I supposed to fucking create art at the same time? Anywho. So today's case. Today's lovely case. We're talking about Robert Hansen. If you don't know him, he has a very prolific nickname called the Butcher Baker. He is the most notorious serial killer for Alaska. Also, I didn't mention, this is the 25 Days of True Crime. So, if you have noticed, I'm kind of doing like cases all over the spectrum for the 25 Days of True Crime. I'm doing well-known cases, not well-known cases. I kind of wanted to cover all bases when it came to my 25 Days of True Crime. That way, it's not just overly popularized cases that I'm depicting. And if you hear any banging or anything like that, maintenance is upstairs right now. They're doing something to the apartment upstairs. Whoever lived there before severely fucked up that apartment, so that's why there's banging. If you hear any bass, it's my downstairs neighbor. He's a douche. So, anyhow, Robert Hansen. Lovely, lovely Robert Hansen. Just a lovely dude. Just a lovely dude. So, he was born on the 15th of February, 1939 in Esterville, Iowa. He is the son of a Danish immigrant who was a baker. Oftentimes in the 30s and 40s, if you were a son of a skilled tradesman, you would follow in your father's footsteps. So that's exactly what Robert Hansen did. He followed in his father's footsteps and he became a baker. Robert, in his youth, was severely shy and he had a stutter, and he also suffered from severe acne, which left him permanently scarred all over his face. He never really received the attention that he wanted from the attractive girls at school, which made him grow up hating females, and he nursed fantasies of cruel revenge on these females. During his childhood and his adolescence, Robert was described as being super quiet, and he was a loner. He had a difficult relationship with his father, and this was mainly because his dad was so like overbearing and super domineering, and he was just a very dominant man. He knew exactly what he had to be, and Robert was not the same type of person. Because of him being super shy and just like him being a loner, he was polar opposite from his dad, so their relationship was not good. Not good whatsoever. So although because of his dad, he practiced both hunting and archery, and this is something that he would take refuge in, especially like if he was a part of a conflict. He would go and hunt. He would go and practice his archery. This is something you want to keep up in your noggin, okay? Remember that. Remember it hardcore. So in 1957, Robert would enlist in the U.S. military, specifically the Army Reserve, where he would serve for 1 year until he would be discharged. He later worked as an assistant drill instructor at the police academy in Pocahontas, Iowa. So while he was there in Pocahontas, Iowa, this is where he began a relationship with a younger woman, and he would eventually marry her in the summer of 1960. So that same year, on December 7th, the fuck? Oh, it's the plumbing. So, sorry. The same year, so December 7th of 1960, Robert would be arrested for burning down the Pocahontas County Board of Education school bus garage. And this is his revenge for him being unpopular in high school. How sweet. So he would serve 20 months out of a 3-year prison sentence at the Anamosa State Penitentiary. And while he was incarcerated, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which at the time they called it manic depression because, I mean, bipolar wasn't really a thing yet. And with this, he was also subdiagnosed with periodic schizophrenic episodes, so that he just wasn't manically depressed. He also had a point where he could go schizophrenic, just for a short period of time. Well, the psychiatrist who made this diagnosis noted that Hansen had an infantile personality, and people with an infantile personality are generally the ones that are super obsessed with getting back at people who felt like he felt that wronged him. So all those attractive girls that, you know, didn't give him the time of day, well, you know, he became super obsessed and just wanted to obliterate them. How sweet. So, over the next few years after he was released, he would be jailed several times for petty theft. I did forget to mention too that while he was incarcerated the first time, his wife divorced him. Well, she filed for divorce while he was incarcerated, after the fire on the school bus garage. So after that, he would be arrested for petty theft over the years. In 1967, he moved to Anchorage, Alaska. Now, this is 4 years after he met his second wife, who he married in 1963, and they also had 2 children together. So in Anchorage, he was like that normal neighbor. Everybody liked him. He was super friendly, super nice. He also set a lot of local hunting records because, you know, hunting was his pastime. He practiced it, and so was archery. So he was well known around the area for his hunting skills. In 1971, in December of 1971, he would be arrested twice. And the first one was for abducting and attempting to rape a unspecified housewife, and then for raping a unspecified sex worker. So he pleaded no contest to the assault with a deadly weapon for the offense of the housewife, and the rape charge involving the sex worker was dropped due to a plea bargain that he did. He would be sentenced to 5 years. 5 years in prison. And after serving 6 months of his sentence, he was placed on a work release program and released to a halfway house. Why does the criminal justice system in the United States suck? Okay? This man, if you just kept him in jail for, you know, his whole sentence, I'm pretty sure things would have been differently. I digress. So, in 1976, Hansen would then again plead guilty to larceny after he was caught stealing a chainsaw from a Anchorage Fred Meyer store. If you don't know what Fred Meyer is, it's a department store. It's like Walmart. That's what it is. It's the same thing with Myers. It's basically just like another Walmart, but it's in, you know, the Pacific Northwest. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and required psychiatric treatment for his bipolar disorder, because at that time, bipolar disorder was a thing. like starting to become a thing. People were starting to learn more about it. It wasn't just manic depression. So yet again, the Alaska State Supreme Court reduced his sentence and he was released with time served. Yippee fucking skippy. So, it is believed that Hansen began killing around 1972, and his MO was to pick up a sex worker in his car, force her at gunpoint to his cabin where he would rape her, and then he would fly her on his plane out to a secluded area where he would hunt her as if she was wild game. See his skills of hunting and archery come into play with this. Before he would shoot and stab her to death. Anywho, so on June 13th of 1983, Hansen offered 17-year-old Cindy Paulson $200 to perform oral sex. When she got into his car, he pulled a gun on her and then drove her to his home in Muldoon. There, he held her captive and proceeded to torture and rape her. So, she later told police that after Hansen chained her by the neck to a post in the house's basement, he took a nap on a couch that was nearby her. So he literally wasn't too far away from her while she was held captive. When he awoke, he put her in his car and took her to Merrill Field Airport. This is where his airplane was, or his jet, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This is where he told her that he intended to take her out to his cabin, and this is actually, it's not even a cabin, it's just a shack that's on the Nick River, and this is in the area of the Matanuska Valley, which is only accessible by boat or by a plane, by a bush plane specifically. So Paulson, she would be crouched in the back seat of the car and with her wrists kind of cuffed in front of her body. So she saw a chance to escape while Hansen was busy loading the airplane's cockpit, and while his back was turned, this is when she crawled out of the back seat, opened the driver's side door, and booked it towards the nearby 6th Avenue. So after she escaped, she told police that she left her blue sneakers on the passenger side floor of the sedan's back seat, and as evidence that she had been in the car. So she was already thinking of a way, like, if I escape, how can I leave a trace of me being in this car? So she left her shoes. Hansen panicked after she escaped and he chased her, but Paulson had already made it to the 6th Avenue first, and this is when she managed to flag down a passing by truck. The driver of the truck, his name is Robert Yount. He was alarmed by her disheveled appearance. He stopped and told her to get in the truck, and he then drove her to a mush inn, and this is where she jumped out of the truck and she ran inside. Because, I mean, you would too if you were just sexually assaulted by a dude, held captive by chains in a basement, then in his car, and it's like fight or flight. If you can't find a way out, then you're gonna fight for your life, and that's what she did. She found a way out. So she tried any means necessary to make sure that if Robert Hansen was near her, he wouldn't see her. So that's why she booked it into the motel. So when she went into the motel, she pleaded with the clerk to phone her boyfriend, and he was at the Big Timber Motel. So the truck driver that brought her there, he continued on with his work. He had to do his route. That's what he did. And while he continued on his work, he called the police to report a barefoot, handcuffed woman. Because obviously, I mean, he just picked her up and brought her to a motel. He had no idea who the hell she was. So when the Anchorage Police Department arrived at the Mush Inn, they were told that there was a young woman that had taken a cab to the Big Timber Motel. So she went to where her boyfriend was. The APD then arrived at room 110 at the Big Timber Motel, and they found Paulson. She was still handcuffed, but she was alone. She was taken to headquarters where she described the perpetrator. So Also, when Hansen would be questioned by police officers, he denied any accusation that Paulson stated. And he also just stated that Paulson was trying to cause trouble for him because he wouldn't pay her demands for extortion. I don't even know. So, although Hansen already had prior run-ins with the law, his his demeanor and he was a very well-known dude. He was a baker where he lived. He was super happy. He was super just like normal. Along with an alibi from his friend John Henning, it kept him from being a serious suspect in this case. Well, stop right there, partner. Here comes a detective from the Alaskan State Troopers. His name is Glenn Floth, and he had been a part of a team investigating the discovery of several bodies in and around Anchorage and Seward and the Matanuska, Susitna, hopefully I said that right, Valley. And the first of the bodies to be found was found by a construction worker near the Eklutna Road, and she was dubbed the Eklutna Doe, or Eklutna Annie, by investigators when she was found. So, and this woman would never be identified. Yeah, would never be identified. Like, he's got a whole bunch of victims. We'll get there. We'll get there, sunshines. Sunshines of my life. We'll get there. So, later that year, the body of Joanna Messina would be discovered in a gravel pit near Seward. And in 1982, the remains of 23-year-old Sherry Morrow were discovered in a shallow grave near the Nick River, which is near where his little shack is. So, just keep that in your thought process. He's literally like, bing, here's a river, there she is. So Floth now had 3 bodies and what looked like one killer that can connect all 3 of them. So here comes this dude from the Alaskan State Troopers. Oh, sorry, local PD, you're not right. We're right. Ding, 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 ding. I think we're onto something here. So after this, he contacted the FBI and specifically a special agent named John Douglas, and he requested help with a criminal psychological profile based on these 3 bodies that were found. So Douglas thought that the killer would be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem. Doesn't that fit the profile of Robert Hansen right there? Low self-esteem and an experienced hunter. This person was also have a history with rejection when it came to women, and he would feel compelled to keep souvenirs of his murders, such as jewelry. So sweet. He also suggested that the assailant might have a stutter, which I'm very curious when it comes to these profiles, when it comes to like certain little attributes like that. How the hell do you come up with them? I can understand if like you see like a stutter in their body language or how they commit a crime, because it is possible that a vocal stutter can, you know, hinder what you're doing, because in your mind you're already used to your stutter. So like your body movements can also stutter at the same, you know what I mean? Like there could be like a physical attribute to your vocal stutter. I wonder if that's how they figure out if a person has a stutter or like a speech impediment, stuff like that. I wonder. I'm thinking too hard. My brain isn't smoking right now. So using this profile, that's when Floth investigated possible suspects until he reached Hansen, who fit the profile and owned a plane. So he's the first person that really tied Hansen to these crimes. Because, I mean, he checks off all the boxes. So Floth, he supported Paulson's testimony and Douglas's profile. And the APD secured a warrant to search Hansen's plane, his vehicle, and his home. So on October 27th of 1983, investigators uncovered jewelry and belongings to some of the missing women, as well as an array of firearms in a corner hideaway in his attic. Also, what was found is an aeronautical chart, and on this chart is marked with 37 little X's marked on it, and this is hidden behind Hansen's headboard. Many believe that the marks on this chart are actually like marks of where his victims' bodies are. And many of these marks actually match sites where prior bodies had been found, and others were discovered later at those that weren't explored. So he literally left his own map of, oh hey, this is where that one and this one is. So sweet, right? When he was confronted with evidence in his home, that was found in his home, he denied it as long as he could. Denial, denial, denial. Did you just love it? Like, dude, we have all this evidence, and clearly you're lying. Like, you're guilty. Why do you keep lying? And eventually he began to blame the women and tried to justify his actions. Like, oh, I'm sorry that she was overbearing. That's why I decided to rape her and, bind her up and, hunt her. How can you justify that? I don't know. So eventually he confessed to each item, and that was of evidence that was presented to him, and he admitted to a spree of attacks against Alaskan women starting in 1971. His earliest victims were girls or young women, and they were usually between 16 to 19, and not prostitutes, unlike the victims who led to his discovery. So he had a variety of ages, a variety of backgrounds for victims. So sweet, right? So sweet. So on that chart it said 37 cases, so I'm going to just tell you about a few of them. So Hansen is known to have raped and assaulted over 30 Alaskan women and to have murdered at least 17, and they range in age between 16 and 41. And some of them have been found and some of them haven't been found. So I will tell you their names, their age, when they went missing, and any details. I have it written on a list. That way you guys can be informed. So, and one of these women was just identified. One of them. So, keep that in mind. Alright, so I'm going to go through the list right now. So his known victims are Cecilia, they called her Beth Van Zanten. She went missing on December 22nd of 1971. She was 17. She was found on the 25th of December in 1971. So 3 days later she was found. Morgan Siobhan Emmerich was 17. She went missing on the 7th of July in 1973, but has not been found. He denied killing her, but she's suspected as one of the X's on his map. So a lot of these that aren't found are suspected to have been, are on an X. Mary Kathleen Thill, she was 22, went missing on the 5th of July in 1975. Again, has never been found. Our next victim she was first called or dubbed Horseshoe Harriet, and this name was given due to the area she was found in. She was depicted as 19 or 20. They don't have a definitive date on when she was killed. They believe it was the late 70s, early 80s. She was found in April of 1984. She was just identified in August of this year as Robin Pelkey. And Robin Pelkey was never reported missing. Gotta love families. So next would be the Eklutna Annie, who I already briefly discussed. They believe her age range is 16 to 25. Believe she was killed between November 1979 and June of 1980. She was discovered on the 21st of July in 1980. So I do have some details of some of these, but not details of others. She was stabbed in the back By the time her body was discovered in the shallow grave off of Eklutna Lake Road, it had been partially eaten by wild animals. Next would be Roxanne Eastland. She was 24. She went missing on the 28th of June in 1980. Hansen confessed to killing her, but her body has never been found. Joanna Messina, who I already briefly touched on. So, Joanna Messina, she was 24. She went missing in early of July of 1980. She was discovered in late July of 1980. Her badly decomposed body was found in a gravel pit. Next would be Lisa Futrell, and she was 41. She is known to be the oldest victim. She went missing on the 6th of September 1980. She was discovered on May 9th of 1984, so almost 4 years later. Her body was found just south of Old Nick Bridge, like just south of the bridge. Sherry Morrow, another name that I kind of dabbled on. So she was 23 when she went missing. She went missing on the 17th of November of 1981 and discovered on the 12th of September of 1982. So almost a full year later, she was found. She was found in a shallow grave on the bank of the Nick River. She had been found shot in the back, found with a gunshot wound to the back. There was no bullet holes in her clothing, suggesting that she was shot while she was nude, and then she was redressed before she was buried. Andrea Altieri, and her nickname was Fish. She was 22 when she went missing, and she went missing on the 2nd of December of 1981. Hansen confessed to killing her, but her body has never been recovered. Sue Luna was 23. She went missing on the 26th of May of 1982. She was discovered on the 24th of April of 1984. So almost 2 years later, her body would be found, and her body was stripped nude, forced to run through the forest while Hansen hunted her like a wild animal, and he shot her to death. D. Lynn Frey is his next victim on our list. Her nickname was Sugar. She was 20. They do not know when she went missing. They do know when she was killed. She was killed in April of 1983, and unfortunately her body would be found 2 years and a few months after she was killed, and she was found on the 20th of August of 1985. Her body was found by a pilot testing his new tires on the sandbar of the Nick River. Paula Gooding, 17, she went missing on the 25th of April of 1983. She would be discovered just camera stopped. So, Paula Gooding, she was 17. She went missing on the 25th of April of 1983, and she would be found just a few months later in September on the 2nd of 1983. She was found in a shallow grave on the bank of the Nick River, and she had been shot in the back. There was no bullet holes in her clothing, suggesting she had been shot while nude and redressed before being buried. Hers was very similar to Sherry Morrow. Cindy Paulson is the one that survived. She disappeared on the 13th of June of 1983. She obviously survived. She was kidnapped, tortured, raped, and managed to escape. We do have 4 others where we don't know when they went missing. We do have certain years of when they possibly were killed, and we do have days when they were found. They were literally found within a 5-day span. Sorry about that. My battery died. Alright, so the last 4 that I'm going to be talking about is 4 of the victims that we don't know when they went missing. We know definitively, we don't know what year they were killed, so we have kind of an approximation, but they were all found within 5 days of each other when the FBI was obviously scouring the area that the rest of the bodies were found in so on and so forth. So we have Malai Larson. She was 28. She was found on the 24th of April in 1984. Now, mind you, all of these are estimated to have, all these girls have been estimated to have died between 1980 and 1983. So I'm not going to say like when, like date killed, just keep that in the back of your mind that it's approximated that they died between 1980 and 1983. Teresa Watson, they don't know, her age isn't listed, and she was found on the 26th of April of 1984. Angela Federn, she was 24. She was found on the 26th of April of 1984. Her body was found at Figure 8 Lake. Tammy Peterson or Pedersen, I think it's Peterson though. Her nickname was Tammy. She was 20 and she was found on the 29th of April of 1984. Her body was found 1.5 miles from Old Nick Bridge. So out of the 17 women that I just mentioned, he was only formally charged with the murder of 4 of them. That was Sherry Morrow, Joanna Messina, Paula Gooding, and Eklutna Annie. Those were the only 4 that he was charged for. Obviously that would probably change now because they have the identity of Horseshoe Harriet, but you never know. So he was also charged with the kidnapping and rape of Cindy Paulson, which is a good thing because, you know, she survived. She's the only surviving victim of his. Once he was arrested, he was charged with assault, kidnapping, multiple weapons offenses, theft, and insurance fraud. The last charge is related to a claim filed with an insurance company over alleged theft of some trophies. He then used the proceeds to purchase something called the Super Cub, which I believe is just another weapon. At trial, he claimed that he later recovered the trophies in his backyard, but he forgot to inform the insurer about it, so hence insurance fraud. So only after ballistics tests came back is when they matched bullets between the crimes, and those bullets matched his weapons, specifically a rifle that he used. So what he liked to use is a Ruger Mini 14, which is a rifle. If you're not into weapons, he would use a knife in a Ruger Mini 14. That was what he liked to use because he was a skillful hunter, so he already knew exactly what weapon he needed in order to execute his crimes. So once he fully was indicted for the murders, he did enter into a plea bargain, and this was so that he would not get the death penalty. So he pleaded guilty on the 4 homicides, especially after all of the evidence that they had against him. It was super overwhelming. Like, there was no way of him getting out of it. So in return for this plea bargain, and for serving his sentence in a federal prison, he was to give more specified details in regards to the other victims. And this, he wanted no public, or there was no publicity allowed with the press in regards to these other victims. That way they could finalize these cases and, you know, make sure that nothing came out. He wouldn't reap any benefits from it, you know, just so that everybody's on the same page, you know, just so that, like, nobody be like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna make money off of this because I killed all of them. No, that's not how the world works. I mean, some cases it does, but another condition of his plea bargain is that he had to participate in deciphering the markings that were on his aeronautical map and help locating the victims' bodies. He then confirmed the police's theory of how these women were abducted, and adding that he would sometimes let potential victims go if she convinced him that she wouldn't report him to the police. he did indicate that he began killing in the early 1970s. So after he was arrested, and again agreeing to help with like the conditions of his plea bargain, he showed investigators 17 different grave sites in and around south central Alaska. 12 of them were unknown to investigators. There remained marks on his map that he refused to give up. He refused to talk about, in particular, the 3 that were at Resurrection Bay. This is near Seward, which authorities suspect that 2 of these marks belong to graves that belong to Mary Thill and Megan Emmerich. And these 2 were ones that Hansen denied killing. So the remains of 12 and its upwards of a probable 21 victims were exhumed by police, and they were returned to their families. Hansen was sentenced by a jury to 461 years in plus life without parole in prison. He's the first imprisoned at the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, and this is in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So in 1988, he was returned to Alaska and briefly incarcerated at the Lemon Creek Correctional Center in Juneau, which, if you don't know, Juneau is the capital of Alaska. Now you know. There's a fun fact. If you look at it, it looks like Juneau because the way it's spelled, but it's Juneau. So after that brief stint, he was also imprisoned at the Spring Creek Correctional Center, and this was in Seward, Alaska, until May 2014. And then after that, he was transported to the Anchorage Correctional Complex for health reasons. So, to end out this lovely case, Robert Hansen is dead. He died on the 21st of August of 2014, so he literally only lasted like 3 months. Yeah, like 3 months in the Anchorage Correctional Complex. At the age of 75, he was pronounced dead due to natural causes. And this was in a result of lingering health effects. So, yeah. I wanted to cover this case not only because he's a sick and twisted man, but have you ever read the book? Now, I read this in school. Of the most dangerous game played, and it's actually about hunting other humans. That's basically what he was doing, is he was hunting other humans. Yeah. Oh, and also his second wife did divorce him in 1986. If you were wondering about what happened to his second wife, yeah, so his second wife divorced him while he was in custody. Quite lovely, right? So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's true crime case about Robert Hansen. This one is an absolute doozy and super messed up. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys keep coming back for more days of the 25 Days of True Crime. Bye, guys!